go into quarantine. Depends on what vehicle you're launching on, but we go into quarantine on the shuttle about a week before launch. And I couldn't believe it, but I had forgotten to buy the gummy bears. So I called my neighbor. You get to bring a little snack food with you. And I called my neighbor and I said, I need you to go to the grocery store and buy gummy bears for me. And she's like, gummy bears? I said, well, I'm not so sure they're going to be the best or the ones. And so you may as well buy some Swedish fish and maybe some gummy worms as well. And we had auditions up in space, and the bears definitely won. And maybe if you come by and see me later, we can watch the bears up in space. People give Josh and I a hard time because he makes planets, and I'm pretty determined to go to them, or at least to leave them occasionally. And I think we're both explorers in our own rights. I have the privilege of having gone on the space shuttle twice, and I go next year, December 10th, on the Soyuz, up to the space station to live for 6 months. I feel very, very fortunate to do that, and not everyone gets to go and do that, and so I thought I would try to take you with me in some ways along that journey, because the journey really starts so long before your feet leave the Earth. And I thought I would just show you a little bit about what getting ready is like. Exploring is something I think Josh and I both do in our different ways. I think to everyone, just looking at the planet and realizing that we can leave it, and we can look back, and we can see things that are both beautiful, interesting, scientific, informative, interesting, from a different perspective. This is San Francisco Bay, and we're actually looking south in the picture there. Let's see the Golden Gate Bridge right there, so you can see that we're down here in Monterey. Beautiful picture of Monterey. So being up there, it's a wonderful perspective, and just always, always changing. We'll probably see this side of Monterey sometime today or tomorrow, Monterey in the fog. But this is going to be my home, and the place that I'll be taking those kinds of pictures from. It's the International Space Station. 16 different countries have put this together and are using it as a massive laboratory for many, many things, experiments, both, I think, physical and social. I show you this picture of Tim Kopra. He went to the space station just a few months ago. He trained for years, just as I am training for years, to do this mission. And the look on his face is the way that I feel about going to space. I mean, he is so happy to be there. And I've been there twice, and I know I am going to look like that, because it is just an amazing and fascinating place. I did have a lot more hair back then when I went on the shuttle. It's great to have that hair. You'd think it would be in the way, but when you move, it actually kind of moves with you in one big giant hair thing. It's an amazing and fascinating place. Let's see if there we go. I am going to go there not on the shuttle this time, but on the Soyuz rocket, wearing a Sokol suit. So I've had some more things to learn. And this is my crew. On the left, Dima Kondratiev. I'm the short one in the middle. And Paolo Nespoli from Italy. We're a 3-person crew. We go on the Soyuz together, and we join 3 other people up there, and they'll be there for 4 months. When they leave, another 3 replaces them, so a 6-person crew on the space station. A lot of training to do to get ready for that. In NASA, we fly in the T-38 airplanes. Now, I was originally a chemist in the Air Force, and so getting to do something like this is pretty astounding. To be able to fly in these planes as the co-pilot. This is Eileen Collins in the front seat. She was the commander on my first mission, first woman to command the space shuttle. These airplanes go supersonic when you'd like them to, faster than the speed of sound. And our pilot, Jeff Ashby, likes to say that this is me coming in for a landing. But those airplanes will make that kind of revolution. They'll make 2 revolutions every second if you pull the stick hard. So for me, every day I go to work and I learn new things, and some of my classrooms are just simply awesome. This is our zero-gravity plane, affectionately known, and for very good reason, as the Vomit Comet. Very fun. There's a lot of things to learn. One of them is spacewalking. So this is the real space station. This is a real astronaut in a real suit out there doing a spacewalk, but you don't get to go and do that until you actually get in there and practice and learn how to use what is your own private spacesuit when you're out there doing that spacewalk. It weighs about 300 pounds, and so spacewalking here on the Earth is actually quite challenging, and so we do it in a giant swimming pool about the length of 2 football fields and the width of a football field. And inside that football field, inside that swimming pool, 40 feet deep, or about 14 meters deep, is our space station and the space shuttle, and we practice spacewalking in that environment. I would say it's the most physically difficult thing that we do. And it's very public in a way. I mean, there's cameras, everything you say comes through a microphone. My strategy is usually to pretend that I'm having a very, very good time, whether I am or not. And it can be actually quite frustrating just because the gloves are very big, the suit is very big, and you're trying to manipulate things sometimes at angles that are hard to do. But this is the reward at the end of that challenging training, which is to actually do a spacewalk and be out on the end of the International Space Station looking at New Zealand in the background. I mean, it's amazing to get to go outside. I haven't done that yet. This is replacing some of the fluids that we need on the International Space Station. There's one box that's new and one box that is old. And actually, I love this picture. This is a space helmet. And this is, I believe this is Christopher Fuglesang, and he is actually holding this camera and looking at his own helmet, okay? And then you'll see the other astronaut there with holding those boxes on the robotic arm and being transported so that then Christopher can actually scooch down into the shuttle bay and help him put those away. So just a really fascinating and difficult spacewalk or extravehicular activity. And so that's the kind of thing that I'm practicing doing so that learning my way around the outside of our house, so to speak. We also do a lot of robotics. There's the robotic arm built by Canada, and you can see spacewalkers out there, and here's the shuttle and the station where it's docked to the station. I practice down here on the Earth at looks like a video panel. We don't actually look out a window in general. We're looking at video views. This is what it's like on orbit. This is Nicole Stott catching one of those, a supply vehicle. When the space shuttle stops flying, all of our supplies will come up either on the Russian vehicles or on a series of supply vehicles that get caught by the robotic arm. Nicole was the first one to do this, and I'm likely to be the second on my mission. And we actually have 4 vehicles coming up, 4 of these kinds of supply vehicles. There's the robotic arm there getting ready to go in and grab that, and then we'll actually attach it to the space station, open the hatches, take out the supplies. Some of those supply vehicles come home, and some of them actually just get jettisoned and they burn up in the atmosphere. This is the Japanese one, and I know that we have origami on the menu here at EG. And I just wanted to show you that I have my own experience with space origami. And I didn't understand, and here's a supply vehicle that's actually going to burn up. And yet we spent actually a long time learning how to fold it very, very, very exactly to fit back on this insulation, to fit back on the spacecraft. And I thought, why are we doing this? And then I remembered, I'm in Japan. This is why we're doing this. We're doing this because it can be done. I was on the trip where Josh's planet went to Antarctica. This was a trip that NASA sent me on to become prepared for going someplace like the space station. It's a place that you go with other people who may or may not be your best friends. And you don't get to pick them. And what I think is the biggest challenge in my job is to learn to appreciate what people bring to the table, instead of bemoaning what they don't bring to the table. And that's certainly a lesson that you can learn when you're part of a 4-person crew in Antarctica. This is one of my favorite slides because it shows you the vastness of Antarctica. And then if you look at this little speck of dirt, that's actually our camp. And that was about 200 miles from the South Pole. We spent 6 weeks in a tent, and I am not a camping girl, okay? Just never had been. I learned really quite a lot with these 3 wonderful people. We learned a lot about each other and how to appreciate what we did bring to the table. We had the privilege of being someplace so vast and beautiful and special. It's very similar to the feelings that I have about going to space, and collected about 1,000 meteorites. It's simply amazing how many there are there. They're easier to see, literally, on the ice, and we can find them, we can bring them home, scientists can study them. Another place to practice being alone on a space station with a few people, but in a more economically reasonable way, is to go underwater. I lived in the Aquarius habitat for 11 days with 5 other folks, 2 professional divers, 3 astronauts, and 1 surgeon. And we did some medical experiments, a small place with great windows. I will tell you that one of the best things about this, first of all, it was neat to be part of this kind of exploration effort where we're literally pretending we are living on the moon, and how are we going to work on the moon? How are we going to talk to mission control, with it when there's a delay between our communications? What do we need them to know? What do we need them to do for us when we're out exploring? And what do we not need them to do? But the best part about living underwater, and I will say almost better than space, is that you've got neighbors underwater. In space, I never actually saw anybody that I didn't actually fly up there with. And there's a long decompression period, and we have to pick a few movies to watch, and I made all those guys on my crew watch Tank Girl, one of my favorite movies. So we also do some survival training. This is Sasha, Nikolai, and I. I'd had exactly 3 weeks of Russian language training when we all learned how to put spacesuits on, met each other, shook hands, put on spacesuits, and lived in the woods for 3 days together. And they had really not much more English, so it was pretty interesting, worked out great. I think Esther remembers these days. You just learn how to do it. Now, Josh was a little worried about what it would be like for me, and so he made sure that I was ready. He and Jamie went ahead and taught me how to make sure I knew how to build a house out there. A little water survival. And there's the same picture that Josh showed you. This is Sasha and Cody and I about to sink one of those planets in the Black Sea. I learned a lot on my space shuttle missions. I'm going to go a little faster because I'm looking at the clock here. I did one mission, an experiment mission for 16 days. Got to see, what does water really want to do? Down here, you're not going to know. This is an experiment you can only do up there. We did plant growth experiments, and the reason I show you this one is not because of the plants so much, but what that plant is doing, floating around like that, that's what life is like for us up there. It's an amazing and magical place. On my second mission, we had 5 people, only 5 because we launched the Chandra X-ray Observatory, and the observatory itself was the heaviest and largest thing we'd ever brought to space. So we needed to make sure that we had enough fuel, enough food, all those kinds of things. And this just shows you the launch, which is a pretty exciting moment, at least in my life. I'll tell you, my first launch was so exciting, and we were so pleased to be off the pad. We had many delays. We finally launched, and it was just simply amazing to be in that rocket leaving the launch pad. On this launch, we actually had some problems right off the pad, ones that we'd practiced in the simulator, and that's what I do now, training for the space station. What if this happens? What if this happens? We're practicing, making sure that when those things happen, actually as they did on this mission during launch, that we're ready. And when we heard the call that we had an electrical short just 5 seconds after liftoff, my first thought was, we know how to do that, because we've done it, we've practiced it. We launched the Chandra X-ray Observatory. Shows us, this is a picture that Hubble took of Saturn. This is a picture overlaid of what Chandra sees when Chandra looked at Saturn. So that's X-ray, looking at X-rays interacting with the ice crystals. So we need all these telescopes to understand, this is a supernova, to understand what these objects out in the universe look like. All these telescopes add up to one picture. But let's jump back to the space station here and learn about learning to live on the space station. Here's our nice, clean simulator down on Earth, and this is what it looks like up on orbit. Learning things, often in a simulator here on the ground. Everything from equipment, learning how to replace things. I wish I had taken auto mechanics, but this is what it all comes down to, is there can come a time you are on the space station and something like this happens. I mean, this is a simulation, this is fake smoke, but the fact that it happened, that we practice it this way, you still have a lot of those same kind of scared feelings, like, oh no, what am I going to do here? Wait a minute, we have procedures, I know what to do. You find out what are your weak points, what are the things that are hard to communicate with your crew, what are the easier things, how do we learn to be a team and figure these things out and know that when something like that happens up in space, if something like that happens up in space, we are ready. And so we train in Russia. You saw that church. This is as it was being built. It's a foreign place over there. It's an interesting place, and I see Esther smiling. I smile when I look at these pictures too, because it's special. And these people over there in Russia, they love the space program, and they live for exploring space, and they're very proud of their part in being the folks that get to bring people up there like us. This is my first simulation with Dima Kondratyev. Josh and Jamie, this is our son Jamie, learning about my spacesuit, showing them what I'm going to go up there in. This is my actual spacesuit that I would go to space in, testing that out in the vacuum chamber. Learning about all the different pieces of equipment up there. This is the bathroom. This is the bathroom control panel. This is why we go to school. And I like to show this slide. This is the Russians studying. This is the cosmonauts studying. And this is the Canadian and the American studying. And there's our space station, and this is what it's like to live up there. We have 6 people living up there. Or actually, right at this moment, we have 5 people living up there. This is what it looks like when a shuttle crew is visiting. You can be stronger than the Man of Steel. There's lots of new ways to do things. You see Mike's got his legs around a spacewalker. It's a wild and amazing and fascinating place. Sandy loved to cook up there. Even eating is a science experiment. You see yesterday's coffee and today's coffee. This is our new water recycling device. Recycles all the different kinds of liquid you could think about on the space station, and then we drink it, and it works out. It's a marvelous place with great, interesting folks that go there that each bring their own special gifts, some of them musical. It's an amazing place. And I'm so excited about going, and at the same time, I love every day of the training. My job every day is to learn new things, to make sure I'm ready to do all these things. We do a lot of experiments up there, both medical, experiments outside that we'd replace with the robotic arm or spacewalking, but mostly it comes down to people. I am part of a program that has real people in it who have a real passion for exploration. People are meant to be in this place. People are meant to be in other places further away than low Earth orbit. But this is the step that we take right now. And I am very proud that we bring all sorts of people up there. This is Guy de la Liberté, who went with the Russians. He brought poetry and music to a place where often there's more engineering than poetry and music. Here's Guy with his crew. Barbara Barrett was a former EG person, was his backup. And Charles Simeoni, one of the folks that went with the Russians. And Esther was his backup. And there's Esther, who will be our next speaker. And this is Kazakhstan. This is launching on the Soyuz. And when I look at these pictures, first of all, I think I should get off the stage and go home and study. But it just reminds me that I need to be ready for this adventure, and that's what I'm spending this next year doing. I'd like to show you the 5 folks that are up there right now in space. We have 2 Russians and 2 Americans and 1 Japanese, a great team. They thought that the movie poster idea, Mike, was a good idea. And my adventure is being chronicled. I like to tell people that NASA and CNN have a project to make spaceflight and going to the space station more real to more people, and I am the project. And so this is me with John Zarella, and they're doing a year-long series on basically my road to launch and the road of our crew to launch. This is me with John Zarella from CNN and their crew, and they are following our crew, which I think I'm getting to know these guys, and they're just simply marvelous to be with, and we find out more about each other every day. I bring a little camera along with me. I try not to get arrested in Russia using it, and I take pictures of my training to share with folks. But ultimately, it comes right back to Earth, to the space shuttle. We have a mission coming up in February, to our plans and our dreams at NASA. And I say plans and dreams because they are both. We are folks that are exploring, and there are plans to do that. It's not just drawings on paper like these are cartoons that you see here, but this is a real test of a real rocket that is going to take folks to the moon. Going further than low Earth orbit is happening. But here is one of my favorite places, back in Massachusetts with family. And I show you these pictures of my family mostly because I want you to see sort of the passion that, both young and not as young, they approach things. Josh is a glassblower, but he's also a father that, all those pictures that you saw, they're all in different places than Massachusetts. None of those pictures were from Massachusetts, where I get ready for space. And so somebody stays home with the 9-year-old and gets him ready. And our 9-year-old, and so many of the 9-year-olds like him, are the ones who will go off, and they will be the ones that leave the planet as well. And they have a passion that's built in. And I think that that's why all of us are here today, is to come to some place like EG, to be together and to learn things that we just didn't know because we just have to. We don't know if he's going to be a glassblower or an astronaut. But we're in space right now. We as a people, if you look at the little lines on this picture, that is the rover that is on Mars. That is a photograph of rover tracks on Mars. This is our world. This is our universe. There's 10,000 galaxies in that picture. And we're going there. And what I do in my journey over the next year and then in the 6 months on the space station is just one small step, but I think an important one as we journey onward. So thank you.